There are two things to worry about on pool: what spells to cast and what position to take. You start with pre-putting Potion of Wild Magic. However, if your kill time is less than a minute or around 1 minute, it's better not to pre-put and just use Potion of Speed during the fight. You should also apply Fairy Fire on the target if you're assigned to it. If anyone else is keeping Fairy Fire, you can skip this step and grats, you just save the global. Cast Trance in close proximity of the boss to minimize their travel time to target. Make sure you are casting Trance while you have Potion of Wild Magic. However, if your Heroism or Bloodlust is being delayed for some reason and not being cast on pool, you should skip casting Trance on pool and cast them right before your guild's Heroism. Cast Starfall and make sure you are in range of the target, especially if you are using Glyph of Focus. I recommend using any sort of weak aura's warning for Starfall range. I'm also using Mouse Over macro for Starlight Bomb together with Starfall as they are on the same cooldown, so if you are doing the same, make sure you are mouse overing the target when casting Starfall. Cast Insect Swarm or both of your dots if you're spec'd for Moonfire. From here, simply continue with normal Eclipse rotation starting with Rod cast to fish for Lunar Eclipse. Important part of the pool is positioning. DPS is all about keeping uptime, so you should always be casting. To squeeze few extra Starfires makes the difference. In order to do this, we want to avoid movement during the fight. To achieve this, you should already know what position of the fight will be the best to minimize any unnecessary movements. It is important you know your guild strategy beforehand. What are we going to do? How are we handling this fight? Are we keeping him in one place? Am I killing the constructs and need to be in range of water? Are we kiting him between four corners so I should stand in the middle? Are we doing something else? You need to know your position in your head prior to pool. Luckily for us, the first few globals on pool are instant cast, like Starfall, Trance, Fairy Fire, Insect Swarm or Moonfire. If you have clear vision where to stand throughout majority of the fight, and can maintain that position without any range or movement issues, these first few instant casts should be more than enough to get you there and proceed with Eclipse rotation. You need to be aware of the ability called Flame Jets. Pay attention to your deadly boss mods, big wigs, weak auras, focus target or any other method you are tracking this ability and its cast time. The most important thing is to stop casting any spell that isn't an instant cast ability just before he finishes casting Flame Jets. You will be interrupted otherwise and cannot cast the same school of magic as the spell was for a few seconds. You can cast Starfire if your Rad was interrupted, or vice versa, Rad if your Starfire was interrupted. However, this will not only throw you out of your Eclipse rotation, but will most likely mean to fail, or at least make it much harder to get to the 99. Long story short, stop casting, don't get interrupted. After he's done casting Flame Jets, he throws you in the air. This is unavoidable unless you resist the spell. While in the air, you usually have time for 2 global cooldowns to spare before hitting the ground and continuing with the rotation. I'm usually refreshing my dots, but Iterate, Starfall, Typhoon, or the proc from 4-piece tier 8 bonus are also options if your dots have already good uptime and is not worth it to snapshot them. Another mechanic that can hinder your goal to Parse 99 are iron constructs if you're assigned to them. Chances are high as Boomies are a popular choice. If your guild is ignoring iron constructs completely or someone else is shattering them, be a happy chicken, one less thing to worry about. However, if you are shattering them, make sure you know if you are geared enough so your non-critical wrap will be about 5k damage or not. If so, then it's very simple, just continue with the Eclipse rotation and switch target when it's time for shatter. Cast just one spell, either Wrath or Starfire depending on your Eclipse, and make a fast switch to target boss again without any delays. Any damage except the killing blow is not counted towards damage parses, so there is no point trying to Starfall, multi-dot or doing other damage to iron constructs except the one cast when you are shattering them or when doing splash damage from Starfall to Ignis. The boss is doing one more ability that can ruin your parsing chances. Once in a while, he selects a random player and throws him into his flight pot. I had RNG on my side for these 2 first resets that Ulduar is live, and I wasn't picked on neither of both tries that I got my 299s. Apparently you can DPS inside the pot, and once you are out, you actually have a 100% haste buff for 10 seconds. But if it lines up with solar eclipse, it's just no benefit for us as the route will be under global cooldown anyway. Looking at random Boomie logs that have high parses, I don't really see any Boomie with haste debuff, and the movies that were picked had low parses. So I can't say it's impossible if you are chosen, and good luck next week, but it will definitely make it much harder to parse. These are the talents I use for both kills. It's more focused on single target, so no point picking Gale Winds or Typhoon since you are not doing any AoE. I also skip talents like Moonglow, Dream State or Omen of Clarity, as it's a short fight and you shouldn't have any mana issues. Feel free to pick any leftover talents, but since Genesis is pretty weak on paper and you are occasionally snapshotting your dots when in the air for flame jets, I went for 3 points in Brambles for the 15% additional trance damage, which is nice on short fights coupled with heroism for trance, and 1 leftover point for some RNG Ulkin Frenzy. In terms of glyphs, Glyph of Starfall is a no-brainer and is my number 1 glyph choice, unless the fight isn't under a minute, which shouldn't happen in Ulduar. The second one is Glyph of Insect Swarm, as I still was in 4-piece tier 7, but I will be using Insect Swarm anyway, even for tier 8, as it shows better results on Sims. For the third glyph you have a couple of choices. Either Glyph of Innervate if you have mana issues and you are innervating your healers, or Glyph of Rebirth to help the progression, but this shouldn't be really needed on Ignis, and both of them are pure DPS losses. But since we have parsing in mind, the best one is probably Glyph of Starfire, which gives you most DPS on paper, and I was using it on both kills, and I'm actually using it on most Ulduar bosses. There are some exceptions where I go Glyph of Focus instead, like Clogarn for example. Another option is Glyph of Focus, which isn't that much behind on Sims, but the range is a major factor on Ignis, and just 1 star not hitting because of range already means a DPS loss. Some might argue to use Glyph of Moonfire, which could be a viable option, but on paper or Sims it's not the only weaker option, but I don't recommend using it on Ignis since you are sometimes snapshotting Moonfire on Flamejets, meaning you are not only getting the full duration which this glyph is designed around, but also the initial damage when moonfiring in air is just missing. So my glyphs for Ignis are Starfire, Insect Swarm and Starfall.